بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So today we will continue from where we left off last week in Tafseer of Surat Fussilat. I think we stopped at ayah number 29. We'll start with ayah number 30 inshallah ta'ala. Verses that we're going to read today are very well known. Inshallah make it through the first 7. Extremely famous ayat in the Quran. And most people, if they don't memorize them, they have read them before multiple times. And today, inshallah, I'm going to try and do my best to clarify why it is that they're so well known and why it is that they fit together within the theme of the surah and what the surah is actually trying to achieve in terms of its goal. And Surat Fussilat, as I explained maybe a couple of times in the last few weeks, is a Makki surah. It's one of the mid-Makki surahs. And when we look at Makki surahs, there's an early, mid, and late. And they all they're a little bit different in terms of what themes that they carry. The early Makki surahs are usually foundational. They talk about the basics of creed and belief, the belief system. Mid-Makki surahs are usually pointing out the difficulties and the challenges and the persecution the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba went through. And the late Makki surahs are usually in preparation for the Prophet ﷺ to get out. I mean, the surahs were preparing him for what to come and telling them a lot of stories about what difficulties come with traveling and dealing with new people and all that. So you can figure out almost when the surah was revealed if you just look at the kind of the themes and the stories that are being told. Surat Fussilat within the Hawamim from Ghafir to Al-Ahqaf, these surahs talk about the concept of da'wah ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of spreading the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what you need and what you need to be aware of. And each surah takes on a topic within that field. In Surat Fussilat, it tells us that da'wah needs to be well articulated. It must be extremely clear. You must choose your words, and you must make sure that your message is very accurate and precise in order for those who you are directing the da'wah to respond. And that people must listen to what's being said. It's an obligation upon everyone to hear and to listen to what's being said and to accept or decline what's being said based on the merit of the content of the words. Or else Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes if people refuse something without taking time to comprehend it and listen to it. And then at the end, da'wah through character is more meaningful. And that piece that I just said at the end is what these verses explain, which is why I think they're famous and they're very much beloved, because they point out that piece very clearly. The other two were explained in the first 3 pages of the surah. The importance of everything being articulated. Kitabun Fussilat ayatuh. And that's the name of the surah. Detailed. Quran is mufassal. It's been explained in detail. It's very clear. And then the examples of those who refuse to listen, which is what we talked about last week. So we'll start inshallah with ayah number 30 and go through these meanings because they're very beautiful and they're definitely very beneficial inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم. The first part, he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed those who say Rabbuna Allah, our Lord is Allah, ثم استقاموا, and then walk the path of uncorruptibility or incorruptibility. And we talked about that a little bit in ayah number 6 in the surah, where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam said, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ. And this ayah obviously is it's repeated in the Quran again, not in the exact same wording, but at least the first part of it, repeated in Surat Al-Ahqaf, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا فَلَا خَوْفٌ. But that wording, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا, indeed those who say our Lord is Allah, ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and walk the straight path, is a very important Islamic concept. The Prophet ﷺ, في الحديث المشهور, the very famous hadith that we all use as an example for Jawami al-Kalim, where the Prophet ﷺ establishes or demonstrates how he is capable with a few words to explain many ideas. When he was asked by one of the Sahaba for a piece of advice that is concise and simple, قال قل آمنت بالله, right? ثم استقم. Say, I believe in Allah, and then walk the straight path. And just always think about the concept of istiqamah, because it's very central in our deen. Anything that's in Surah Al-Fatiha is very central. Any word and its meaning that exists in Surah Al-Fatiha is a central part of Islam that you need to comprehend very clearly. And if you don't have the proper understanding, then you need to take some time and do that, because you recite this, because you repeat that concept 17 times daily. And that you're going to continue to do that to the day you die, which is a lot. Any idea that you repeat 17 times a day must be something very important. You cannot afford not to fully understand and be comfortable with. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So it's there, and it's explained very clearly that the path that you are walking is going to be that which is straight. And again, it's obvious that this is not it's not literal in its meaning. It's very figurative, because you're not forced to walk straight at all times and only take very difficult rights and lefts when you walk. You can walk in any. This is talking about the walk of your life. It's talking about the basics of your decisions and how you go by living. And istiqamah, it's funny, this is one of the few verses where the four khulafa actually have input on the meaning. قال أبو بكر الاستقامة أن لا يشركوا بالله شيئا. ثم قال عمر الاستقامة أن يطيعوا الله فلا يروغوا روغان الثعلب أو روغان الثعلب أو الثعالب. وقال عثمان الاستقامة أن يخلصوا دينهم لله. ثم قال علي الاستقامة أن يؤدوا الفرائض. So each of the khulafa actually have an input on what the word istiqamah means. And that just tells you the importance of the actual concept itself, that the four big names took time to actually explain. And they all say it's not, to not associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umar ibn Khattab is very clear. It's not to play around the way a fox will. That's the little wording of Umar ibn Khattab, that they're straight. They don't play around like foxes do. Foxes are known to try and steal and try to find shortcuts and back doors to get what they want. And this is exactly what istiqamah means. You're a straight shooter. There's no reason to be afraid of you when someone's dealing with you, financially or socially or in any form, because you're a person of your word. You would never lie. You would never betray. There's no it's the same. What you see is what you get. This person has no hidden agenda. There's nothing being said behind your back or behind closed doors. Extremely valuable. If you meet people like that, probably the most valuable thing you will run into in your life. If you find someone like that, you hold on to them, because it's a very rare currency. Even though this is the essential part of our deen, someone is mustaqim, because you're very comfortable with that person. You're safe. You're safe. You may not like them, and they may not like you, but you're safe, because istiqamah, they won't lie. They won't take shortcuts. They won't do anything there's no corruption. There's no corruption in their mentality. There's no corruption in the way they treat you. And whenever you think of people and you want to say something nice about them, you're not interested in how much khushu' they have in their prayer. That's not how you describe them. And if that's how you describe them, then you're still naive. But the moment you have a daughter or someone in your family who's ready for marriage, and some guy comes and asks for her hand, this is not what you're looking for. Does he stay for witr every Taraweeh during Ramadan? That's a useless question. You shouldn't ask that. What you're looking for is this person mustaqim. The actual essence of the questions you're asking is to establish, is this someone who is mustaqim? Does this someone show up on time? Will this person take care of those whom he is responsible for? Will this person show kindness at all times, whether they're happy or they're not? Is this someone who will only eat halal and only bring halal into their home? This is what istiqamah is. And finding someone like that this is the person that you will marry your daughter to. And if someone doesn't have that istiqamah, even if they're standing in the first line, you're not gonna be okay with it. And when you're really happy with someone, you want to vouch for them. That's how you vouch for them. You vouch for them based on their ethics, based on their morals, based on the fact that they do not allow corruption into their lives. A really, really important concept, and I think it's really worthy of thinking about, that we're not to be corrupted. We don't allow things to corrupt us. Not wealth, not power, nothing. Nothing can corrupt a Muslim. Why? Because a Muslim is someone who practices istiqamah, who continues to, as one of the scholars would say, never heard of the concept of karama. These are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to those who are close to Him. And these are things that are not shared with others. One of the scholars says, istiqamatu aynul karama. True karama is being able to perform istiqamah. فقال الكرامات نوعان حسية ومعنوية فأما الحسية كالمشي على الماء والتحديث بالخاطر فهذه تحدث للمسلم وللغير المسلم وللعامي وللغير العامي. The karamat are two types of karama. There are those that are materialistic. There's things where you can, like walking on water, knowing what people are thinking about. These things are offered to Muslims and non-Muslims. أما الكرامة المعنوية فكالالتزام بصلاة الفجر وقيام الليل وأكل المال الحلال فهذه لا تكون إلا لخواص الخواص. And then there are figurative karama, which is praying fajr in jama'ah every day, or praying qiyam al-layl every night, or only allowing halal into your home, these are only for the closest of the close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is really what it means. For you to be close to Allah is being able to continue to walk the path of of righteousness for the rest of your life. Istiqamah, it's extremely important. What you should be looking for as a person is to make sure that you're adhering to these words and to these ideas. But I will not allow anything to corrupt me. When you're young, you're idealistic, this is more meaningful to you. This is why I'm taking a little bit of time to talk about it. Because if you're a bit young, this is important. When you're young, you're idealistic and you want to live, you want to be like that. You don't want to be someone who allows the world to corrupt you. When you get older, this changes a little bit in terms of what you experience and what you see around you. It's just how it works. But hold on to that. Out of all the idealistic concepts that you pick up as a young person and then you drop later on in life as it goes, don't drop this one. The importance of istiqamah, of not allowing anything or anyone to corrupt you as you go through life. Allow that to be the one thing you hold on to from your teens and 20s as you go through life itself. Because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this beautiful verse. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Indeed, those who said, our Lord is Allah, they identified the source. They identified the source of their ethics, and then they committed to it. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. And they walked this straight path. And that is all Islam is about. There's really nothing more to Islam than the two things we just talked about here, honestly. Islam is filled with rulings and laws, but it's this. This is really all this. Do you believe in La ilaha illallah? Yes, then walk the straight path. Do not allow anything to corrupt you. So if they do that, تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. The malaika will descend upon them. Do not be afraid or do not fear. And do not be upset, do not be sad, لا تحزنوا. وأبشروا, and rejoice in the promise of Jannah, which you were promised. وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون. And enjoy the glad tidings of Jannah, which you have been promised. نحن أولياؤكم. The malaika will continue to speak and say, we are your supporters. Al-wali is someone who supports you, or your ally, someone who stands by you. نحن أولياؤكم. We are indeed your supporters in this life and in the hereafter. And on that day, in يوم القيامة, وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُم. And you will find on that day all which your souls desire. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. Everything that you've ever wished for. تَدَّعِي أي تتمنى. When you claim something, when you claim you want something, and this is I talked about this in Surat Yasin before. It's an interesting linguistic complex, but regardless, not to get into too much detail, tad'un means whatever you wish for. So whatever you desire, all that you desire, meaning there's a direct wanting or craving that your nafs has towards something, you get that, and anything that you don't have a craving for but you wished for. Something that was just conceptual. You didn't really understand. You didn't necessarily. There's no necessary craving of. It's just there's a thought of it, meaning something you wish to be able to experience. In Jannah, everything that you desire and everything that you wish for will be made available to you until you are fully satisfied. As the Prophet ﷺ tells us that when a servant is in Jannah and meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you get a meeting with your Lord once a week. When you meet him subhanahu wa ta'ala, you get to ask for things. فَيَقُولُ لَكَ الرَّبُّ تَمَنَّ عَلَيَّ عَبْدِي. Oh, my servant, ask me, or wish for whatever you want. So you begin to wish for things. You say, I want this, and I want that, and I want that, and I want that. فَإِذَا مَنْتَهَا الْعَبْدُ. Until the servant is done wishing, قَالَ الرَّبُّ عَبْدِي أَلَا تُرِيدُ كَذَا أَلَا تُرِيدُ كَذَا. The Lord starts to speak to you. Do you not want this? What about that one? فيقول العبد بلى يا رب. Yes, I didn't think of that. I didn't want that. I forgot about that. And he prompts you subhanahu wa ta'ala for that which you didn't have. قال أرضيت عبدي فيقول وما لي لا أرضى وأنت رب العالمين وقد رضيت عني وأدخلتني جنتك. And then your Lord asks you, are you satisfied, my servant? And you will say, how could I not be satisfied? And I'm in Jannah, and you've given me everything I want, and you offer me that which I don't even know was an option to begin with. فيقول الرب ألا إني رضيت عنك فلا أسخط عليك أبدا. I indeed grant you my satisfaction and my acceptance, and I'll never be displeased with you again. And this is what a servant gets in Jannat al-Na'im. This concept of awliya'ukum fil hayati dunya wa fil akhirah, that the malaika are your supporters. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, Inna lil-shaytani lammatun wa inna lil-malaikati lamma. فإذا جاء الإنسان ما يصدق به الحق وما يطاع به الله فتلك لمة الملك وإذا جاء ما يكذب به الحق ويوعد فيه عن ربه فتلك لمة الشيطان. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that indeed you will be experiencing khawatir, basically. You'll be experiencing, so the shaitan does waswasa, and the malaika have something similar. They prompt you. They give you thoughts. They give you a little bit of a nudge. And the shaitan does that, and the malak does that, so the malaika. And each one will prompt you in a direction. So if you have a desire to do something that is close to a haqq, something that will bring you close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the reminder of the malak. And if you are being prompted to do the opposite, to go in the opposite direction and to leave farther away from Allah and closer to batil, and that is the waswasa of the shaitan. But at all times, you're experiencing things, and that's why when we go through life, we have these feelings and these thoughts. These are just the thoughts that occur. Sometimes the thought is really positive and something beautiful, and that's from one of the malaika. And sometimes the thought is just horrible, it's garbage, and that's from shaitan. And even in Ramadan, when the shaitan isn't there, he has left, don't worry, he prepares for Ramadan just probably more than you and I do. And he makes sure that he leaves, he blows with his khurtum long enough inside of us so that he continues. It's like almost an automatic release type of waswasa that will occur for the full month to make sure that you don't get bored, or you don't feel you might you don't feel that he left you. We're used to him there always reminding us of everything. It's not leave us for 30 days, we're going to miss him, so he leaves with us. Automatic release waswasa for the 30 days. But malaika do the same thing. Malaika will give you nudges towards what is good. None of this controls you. None of this actually dictates what you're going to do. These are just prompts. They're just thoughts. They're just something that's positive and things that are negative. And the closer you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more positive things you'll get. And the farther away you are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more negative you get. Adding to that, one more specific point is the closer you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more powerful the blow the shaitan will try to deliver. Because you're close to Allah, shaitan he finds it more difficult to get to you. So when he does get to you, he prepares a very severe blow. Like he tries to get you to think and do something really bad. because you have so much merit as it is. So they really push. That's why those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to continue to be extremely aware and conscious of the fact that shaitan is there till the last moment. The known story of Imam Ahmad anhu, as he was passing away, he was saying in his dream, "Laysa ba'd, laysa ba'd," not yet, not yet. So he'd wake up and you ask him, "What are you saying?" فقال جاءني إبليس. Shaitan came to me in my dream. فقال فلت مني يا أحمد. You made it, Ahmad. I wasn't able to catch you. I tried, but I couldn't do it. فقلت ليس بعد. No, not yet. I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. The moment you think you've made it, then you've fallen. The moment you have a belief inside of you that I made it, you're done. You're done. You just got on the slide and you're already sliding on your way down. The moment you think that you don't make it until both your feet are in Jannat al-Na'im. That's when you've made it. When both feet are inside and the door closes behind you, then you can go ahead and you can relax and you can let go. You can let your guard down and then you can believe whatever you want. But until then, there's always the possibility that shaitan finds a way to give you that poisonous thought that can ruin years of good deeds. That poisonous action that can literally, it mixes with the good, it mixes with an ocean of good deeds, but then it ruins it. So these verses here are beautiful because they tell us that there is the opposite. We'll be reminded of what I just said at the end of today's verses again. But at the beginning of these ayat, those who قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا, they will say, "My Lord is Allah," and they walk this straight path. The malaika will come to them and will be prompting them, "Allah takhafu, don't be afraid. ولا تحزنوا, don't be sad." The two things that human beings don't like being. We don't like to be afraid of the future. We don't like to be sad with our present. These are the two things that we get bothered of. If the present sucks, then we're sad. And if the future is unclear, then we're afraid. And those two feelings, you mix them together, and people are anxious and depressed, and they're not doing well in life, and nothing works with them because you mix those two feelings together all the time, and you can't get over it. So the malaika will bring you those glad tidings. Will remove that fear, remove that sadness, and give you those glad tidings of something beautiful that is waiting for you on the day of judgment, where they will continue to be your supporters, continue to offer you those prompts, give you those thoughts of khair, give you those, nudge you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in Ramadan, as you feel nudged to come to the masjid and to come to Fajr and to go for Taraweeh and to read the Quran, this is the malaika being, rejoicing in the fact that they have the ability to do that for you without the interruption of Iblis alayhi la'natullah. Make sure after Ramadan you allow them to continue to do this for you. Make sure that you set yourself up in a way where they continue to push you towards what is good for yourself. As they hope for you that you find a day where everything that your soul desires and everything that you ever wished for will be made available to you. Nuzulan, accommodations, min ghafurir rahim, from he who is most forgiving and he who is most merciful. Accommodations. Nuzulan is like a hotel. In Arabic, the word nuzul that's what they call it. It used to be called a hotel. Accommodations. This is going to be a part of your accommodations, not all of them. It's going to be a part of the accommodations you're going to find from your Lord who is most forgiving and your Lord who is most merciful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to enjoy all of this. Allahumma ameen. Let's go on. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِّمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. And this, of course, is the central verse within the whole surah. Every surah has within it one or more central verses, ayat mihwariya, verses that the whole surah kind of revolves around. And the Quran, each surah in the Quran is designed a little bit differently than the other. Not all of them have the exact same design. Some of them are paragraph based. Some of them begin with the central verse and everything after it is commentary. Some of them are a build up, meaning they just build up and then you have that central ayah right at the end. And some of them, the central ayah is right in the middle and there's build up to it and there's commentary after it. And this Surat Fussilat is one of those. So you have the central surah ayah right in the middle. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. And who is better in terms of what they say? This is a very interesting ayah because of the way he puts it. So he says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. Who has better things to say? Who is better spoken than? So he didn't say who is better than. No, he said who is better spoken than. He didn't say وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ. No, he said وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. Who is better spoken or whose words are better than the one who دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ, calls up people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the concept of da'wah ila Allah, which is what this whole theme from Ghafir to Al-Ahqaf talk about. Every surah in the Hawamim talk about da'wah ila Allah from one angle or the other. So who is better spoken, whose words are better than the one who calls others to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and lives a pious life, or lives a life where they perform the deeds Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to perform. وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and said, I am amongst those who believe in Allah, amongst those who submit to Allah. Now here's the piece that is interesting. He said, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, who is better spoken than someone who does these three things? Calls the people to Allah. And that makes sense because calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be seen as something done verbally. But then how is عَمِلَ صَالِحًا, how does it fit there? Who is better spoken than someone who performs the good deeds? How does that, you can say who is better than someone who performs good deeds. It makes sense. But who is better spoken than someone عَمِلَ صَالِحًا? You understand what I'm trying to say here? He's using, it's a very interesting complex. And the reason he's doing this is because he's saying subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best da'wah that can occur, the best, the person who's best spoken in their da'wah is someone who عَمِلَ صَالِحًا, someone who does the right deeds. Because doing that is louder. It's louder than someone who just speaks of it. You do it, it's louder, meaning it sounds better. Does that make sense? وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. He could have said وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and that would be much simpler. Honestly, linguistically, it would be much more simple for me to explain for you. But he said وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, and then he added three things. Two which are things to say, but the third one isn't. It's just it's deeds. وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, did good deeds. How is that who's better spoken than someone who عَمِلَ صَالِحًا? Exactly. If you're wondering how, if you're wondering how, that's exactly what he was hoping you would do. Who is better spoken than someone who does good deeds? Exactly. No one's better spoken than someone who does good deeds. No, ya Sheikh. No one is better spoken than someone who can sit in a masjid on a little thing and then articulate. No. Someone who does good deeds is better spoken than that guy. Is better spoken because that's more meaningful and that lasts longer. And the volume of that is higher than someone who is sitting and just talking about stuff. عَمِلَ صَالِحًا means more. I understand what I'm trying to say. The deeds are better. They speak more than the words that come out of our mouths. Deeds explain things better, explain things long term in a much more articulate manner than the words that are going to come out of the mouth. That's why the Prophet ﷺ spoke few words. He was a man of few words ﷺ. Imagine that. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a man of few words. You wouldn't think so. Honestly, when you study the Quran and you read his life, you would think that this guy was talking all that. No, he didn't speak except when needed. And whenever he said, he repeated 3 times. And it was concise, 7, 8 words tops per sentence. Alayhi salatu wasalam. He didn't need to, because his actions spoke louder than his words. But watching him, alayhi salatu wasalam, was much more meaningful. Observing him live his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, had more impact. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, who is better spoken than the one who calls to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and lives a good life, and lives the deeds, performs the deeds, and declares that he is one amongst those who submit to Allah. Declares that he is Muslim. Declares, I belong to this faith. I'm a part of this creed, this belief system. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا. This is what he's saying. No one's better spoken than the one who performs the best deeds. Because if really you want to make an impact in the world, that's how you make an impact in the world. And no one's better than you, by the way, if you do that. It's very simple, right? He says, "وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ," who's better spoken than you? The answer is no one. It's a rhetorical question. The answer is no one. So no one is better spoken than you if you perform three things. If you call to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you perform the deeds Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you to perform, meaning you're being the best person you can be. And you do it by declaring, as you declare that you are Muslim. Meaning you do it under the umbrella that I am Muslim. This is why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it because I am special. And Islam is, of course, a nice thing, so I'm a part of that. But really, all the good stuff I'm doing is just me. It's how I'm amazing. Others are, no. I'm doing this because this is under the umbrella of Islam. This is what I was taught to do as a Muslim. How hard is that, really? When you think about it, it's not that difficult. It's very doable. And the best form of da'wah is that. This is what he's saying, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, not me. And who is better spoken? Who is better? No one is. No one is better spoken than the person who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing the best deeds and claiming that they're Muslim. No one is. So wherever you are, wherever it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dropped you in this world, wherever He positioned you, wherever it is that you are, that's all you need to do. You want to be the best da'iyah ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who calls the people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best form, the best spoken one, then do that by performing your best deeds and declaring that you are Muslim. And that is how you're going to achieve this. And that is more meaningful. And it makes the job that people like me do much easier. And our job becomes just simple, which it is. It's once what I do becomes more important or is overrated that we start losing our way. It's once the words that are shared in these types of settings become overrated in terms of their impact that we start actually losing our way. It's funny. People get offended when we say this, but this is the truth. This is totally the truth. If it wasn't the case, the Prophet ﷺ would never stop talking. If the case was that you need to just keep on speaking to, then he would never stop talking ﷺ all his life. But he didn't. He didn't, because that's not the way of nubuwah. The way of prophecy is not that. You explain what needs to be explained, but then you go and you practice it. And that practice is what's going to change the world. It's the practice that you are going to take from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and implement in your life and be an example for others. The Prophet ﷺ was not the supreme orator in the Quran. He's not complimented for his khataba skills. He is complimented for being shaheed alayna, as an example for us, not a martyr, an example for us. He is complimented alayhi salatu wasalam that وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ شَهِيدًا عَلَيْكُمْ فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. And when the day of the judgment, when you bring for every group of people an example, the gold standard of their time, and we're going to bring you as the gold standard for them, meaning for the Muslims, for us, for our ummah. So he wasn't being talked about as the amazing, even though he was, alayhi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No one, and I go back to a few mornings ago when I talked about how he spoke, alayhi salatu wasallam. No one is more articulate. No one spoke more clearly. No one was able to explain a complex idea with such few words better than him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. However, that's not how he's complimented in the Quran. He's complimented based on his character and his khuluq, on the fact that he's an example, he's our golden standard. You compare yourself to him, to his example, alayhi salatu wasallam. And that's what's meaningful. And that's how da'wah actually made it. The Sahaba weren't mesmerized by his durus, but they were taken by his lifestyle. They were taken by his ethics and his morals and his characteristics and the way he lived his life, the compassion that he had and the humility that he had and the humbleness and the love and the generosity and the bravery and the asceticism and the perseverance and his grit, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is what they watched and this is what they loved about him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that's the difference. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, who is better spoken than someone who sits on who is better spoken than the one who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and performs the correct deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to perform, and does that under the umbrella of being a Muslim. Yes, you need to do it under the umbrella of being a Muslim, obviously. That's why you're doing it. That's where you learned it from. Because when you do something under the umbrella of something else, people look at, okay, what was it that was driving this behavior? And then they become interested in the driver. They become interested in whatever drove the behavior. What is the root of this behavior? Why is this person acting like this? So they go and they search and they find it. And that's more meaningful to them than a million khutbah and a million dars. And that's just the reality of it. And then he continues, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to walk down the same path. It's another verse. وَقَالَ وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. To explain in case what I just said makes no sense or you don't believe me yet. He says, and indeed, a good deed and a bad deed are not equal. They're not the same. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. There's no equality between good behaviors and bad ones, between good choices and bad choices, between good deeds and bad deeds. idfa billati hiya ahsan. When badness or evil is sent your way, push back, fight back with billati hiya ahsan, with that which is the best you got. We push back against evil with goodness. Idfa billati. Idfa is push back. When someone dishes out evil to you, dishes out sayyi'ah to you, you push back with a hasana. You push back with something good, with something of value, with something that is beautified, with something that has excellence in it. They don't dish out garbage and you dish out garbage right back. They show sayyi'ah and you push back against the sayyi'ah with a hasana, with something good. In the athar, Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam was walking down a road one day. And he's walking with one of his apostles, and someone would call upon him, and he would call him a name. And of course, they called him bad names, alayhi salatu wassalam. Son of this or son of that. They say bad words to him. So he's calling upon him, oh, son of whatever. So Isa alayhi salam would turn to him and would say, Barakallahu feek, wa jazakallahu khayra, wa ahsanallahu ilayk, wa hadallahu qalbak, may Allah bless you and grant you the best. So the apostle beside him would say, Ibn Maryam, la'allaka lam tasma'hu. Maybe you didn't hear what he said. You see, he wasn't saying salams, he was actually, cursing you. فَقَالَ كُلٌّ يُخْرِجُ مِمَّا عِنْدَهُ. Everyone produces that which they have on the inside. Everyone will dish out whatever they have on the inside. That's what he has on the inside. He exposed it and brought it out, and this is what I have on my inside, and this is what I bring out. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. Good deeds and bad deeds are never equal. SubhanAllah, this verse, right? I need to forget about words. Forget about words and explanations and tafseer and linguistics and meanings and articulation of ideas and the grammar and the actual. No. Good deeds and bad deeds are not the same. Good deeds are different. And if you want to see the effect of good deeds, when someone brings you something evil, you push back with something that is khayr. idfa' billati hiya ahsan. And if you do that, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ. Then the person whom you have animosity with, then your enemy, someone who has declared you as their enemy. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ. The person that was once very hateful towards you, they didn't like you. كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. They will turn into a close friend to you. They will suddenly transform into a wali is a supporter, and hamim, that is intimate. So an intimate supporter is the literal translation of these two words. But he's talking about someone who becomes a good friend. Someone doesn't like you, you don't like someone else, and they dish out something shar. Try for once, just once, try to respond to their shar with something that is khayr and see what happens. Try to respond to their evil with something that is kind, something that is nice. The best you got. He said, billati hiya ahsan. If you take those three words and you'll take it with that which is the best, with that which is most excellent. That's what this means. Billati hiya ahsan. Respond. You gave me something horrible. You spoke about me behind my back. You came to my face and said very rude words. You tried to sabotage me. You tried to sabotage my life. So what I can do? What can I do? There's a couple of things I can do. There's many things I can do. I can respond in many ways. How about you just give it a try and respond with that which is the best? كما قال عبد الله بن سلام لما وصف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, as Abdullah ibn Salam was saying when he described the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, ما ازدادوا فيه أذى إلا وازداد حلما. The worse they are to him, the more patient he is to others. قال نجده في كتابنا. We find it in our book. We find it in our Torah, describing the Prophet of the end time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the more you provoke him, the more you mistreat him, the worse things you say to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more patient he will become, the more kind he will become, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's how his character was, because that's how people, that's why people believed. The number of Muslims on the planet today is there because of that. I can tell you for sure, not because of one of the khutbahs. For sure, 100%. 100%. It's when they saw him, alayhi salatu wasalam, being continuously provoked by people, and he continuously, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, hoping khair for them, wanting goodness for them, trying to bring them close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forgiving all that what happened before. He does it so graciously that we can't even understand. We forget. We forget. Like, he is so good at it. This is how good he is at it. Is that not only does he forget their past of adha, of harm that they showed, he makes you forget it. Like, you don't even remember. When he speaks to people, and you listen to the way he's speaking to them and the effort he's putting in trying to get them close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you and I forget that this person before, just a month ago, was behaving in A, B, and C that is extremely offensive and aggressive against him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the people he loved. And that is a whole different level of mastery, where he is, alayhi sallam, not only forgetting himself and pushing back with each other, which is good, but he's even eluded you to think that this person never harmed him, alayhi salatu wasallam, in his life. You're telling me that you forgot harm? You forget someone who has mistreated you before. You forget it. Someone who comes and says something about you or to you that is harmful, you forget about it? Ya Shaykh, a'udhu billah. Well, the human being never forgets harm, ever. The other person can continue to apologize until they are blue in the face, and you'll accept their apology, but you will never forget the harm. And it'll come on your tongue at some point. At one point, you'll remind them of it, or you'll say something to allude to the fact that they harmed you one day, but not him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He does it so well that we think no one harmed him. You would think that Abu Sufyan didn't harm him. You would think Umar ibn Khattab didn't harm him. You would think that these people did not go after him, alayhi salatu, and say things, but they did. But alayhi salatu wasallam does not. Idfa' billati hi ahsan. He only pushes back with that which is the best, so well that he even fools us to think that he was never mistreated, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that's a whole nother level. That's why you need, when you study his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, you need to understand the background of what this person actually did to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, and then how he approached him later on. It's amazing. It's amazing. Amr ibn al-As, Khalid ibn Walid, take these names. They didn't harm him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Ya Latif. Beyond what I can, the words that were said and the actions that were done, it's like they never did it. And we go through life studying his seerah, alayhi salam, thinking that they didn't do anything, or we forget about it too. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Not only does he forget about it, he lets you forget about it so that you can move on. And that's يعني ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة. They're not equal. They never have been, they never will be. Good deeds and bad deeds aren't the same. Try the good ones for idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Push back the bad with the good. With the good, just try. Push back with the good. And then suddenly the person who was once your enemy becomes a good friend. Becomes a good friend. You want to make a friend, that's what you do. Let someone lash out and then you give them a rose. A rose of good deeds. And watch how the 99% of human beings, if they're not psychopaths, they will melt. They will melt in embarrassment and in kindness once they dish out garbage and you take it and you wrap it up into something nice, turn it into something nice, and you give it back and beautified and in a form of excellence. And they'll become your friend. You win a friend. All you have to do is swallow your ego for a moment and actually practice Islam just for a moment instead of talking about it. Because now we've just established that everyone here agrees to what I said. Let's see if we can actually practice this. Let's see if we can actually practice it. What's the point? If you don't practice, what's the point? Tell me what's the point of reading all of this if no one's going to practice it? Who's going to practice it, tayyib ya akhi? Let's agree. Who's going to practice it? Let's find someone, because it's not appropriate that we read the ayat and then we say, yes, this is beautiful. Push back against evil with good things. Like, who's going to do it? No, I'm good. I can't. I have a temper. Okay, so you're exempted? What's the deal here? So who's doing this? Who's going to be doing this? Someone has to do it. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. This is one of the most influential verses in the Quran, and it's very meaningful. And you need to try it in your life. And a part of tazkiyah is actually getting through a moment where someone does it. And subhanAllah, the moment someone mistreats you, is the moment you start saying, no, but you don't understand. No, I do understand. Everyone understands. Yes, you experienced evil. You're not that special, and neither am I. We all experienced evil. People mistreat us. They say things about it. They do things to us. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing unique. It happens to all of us. Once it happens to you, see if you can respond in a kind way, and see if you can win a friend. We were taught to do this, and I can tell you this. I can tell you that this exercise is the most truthful exercise that exists within Islam. This is the most truthful exercise. This never goes wrong. I have yet to see this go wrong for me. Yet. The problem is me. The problem is always me. Do I have enough khair in me to respond to the evil that's being dished out? That's all it is. But if I do, and I'm capable of practicing this ayah, it never goes wrong. The person becomes your friend. And the person who once harmed you forgets that they did. You never do. There's always a part of you that remembers, how do you act like, I'll tell you this funny story. So when I was 16, 17, I became the imam of a small masjid in the village, the old masjid. So I would wear what is known as the Pakistani dress. So the two pieces, the hulla on top and then the one under. I used to walk in the village with my zuhurat in my hand and I go to pray tarawih. And there was a guy, his name was Ismail, Allah yazku bil khair, not my brother, but someone else. And he would go back and forth with his tractor, and he would mock me on the way there and mock me on the way back. He and a couple of his friends. Every time they would call names and they would make fun of me. They would do it on the way there and on the way back. And that was when I first started. 4 or 5 years later, this guy started to come. He was praying in the masjid one day, and he came to the masjid to pray. And I went up and I gave salams and I asked him, do you want you and your friends to maybe sit down? I can help you guys with a little bit of Quran. So he said, yeah, sir. They sat down and we started to do a halaqat Quran. And this gentleman became a part of the halaqat that we ran. And he spent maybe 6 or 7 years in the masjid, all tarawih and tahajjud and whatnot. And he came to me during those years and he said, Sheikh, I want to tell you something. And I go ahead. He said, I don't know, but I have to come clean. I have to admit to you that there was a time where I used to go back and forth on the tractor, but you didn't notice. I'm like, who said I didn't notice? Of course I knew it was you. He's like, I mean, yeah, of course I know it was you. You used to be with fulan and fulan and fulan, and they thought that I didn't, because it was dark or something, that I didn't know who they were, and that's why I came up to them and talked to them about the deen. So, no, I told you it was you. You guys were being. And they're like, well, why did you? This is why. Because you're taught, idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Push back with the best and see how people are generally good. They just have bad moments. They make poor choices. They give in to what the shaitan is doing for them. They're just as lost as you are, and they're just as weak and in need of help as you are. And innately on the inside, they're kind. They do want to do the best thing, they do want to do the right thing. They're just not very good at it. They're just not good at going about going by. So I can be a force of khair or a force of shar. It's totally up to you. Yeah, I can totally, once I became a little bit more known and more established, I could have totally gone back to that guy and held him accountable for the way he made me feel. It was very ostracizing. It was very harmful. As a 16-year-old, it hurt to hear these things and you felt very embarrassed about yourself in the way that you are. Or you can just let it go and push back with that which is best and win a friend. And win a friend for the rest of your life. And someone that you will continue to have love with for the rest of your life and not feel bad again. Just try it. Wallahi, it never fails. Never fails. But then again, it's a practice. It's not just words. Words are easier. Practices are much more difficult. Let's read the last 2 verses and then go home, inshallah. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. وَإِمَّا يَنزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And then he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make sure that this idea is drilled in properly, وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. And only those who have true perseverance that will be granted the ability to perform the things we just talked about. Meaning, أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, the ones who are best spoken. No one's better spoken than the one who calls to Allah, performs the deeds that Allah commanded them to perform, and say and do it under the umbrella of Islam, and only push back against evil with goodness in their lives. The only people who can do that are the ones who are granted perseverance. You have to have sabr. You have to be someone who is truly sabir, who truly has perseverance, and that's not easy. Not everyone does. Not everyone has grit. Not everyone's committed till the end. Many of us are committed maybe 50% or 60% of the time, but then you push us far enough and then we take a step back. No. الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا are the ones who are granted the ability to do this. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. And those who are able to do this are only the ones who are granted a great حظ. حظ is not luck. حظ is a portion. It's provision. It's sustenance. حظه is nasibuhu. This is what you were offered. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. This is the piece of the cake that He cut for you. Here's yours. So only that, only the one who is granted a very generous portion of what? He doesn't even say of what. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. Of what? Of ethics, of morals, of character, of not of words. Obviously not of words. It's of character. Only the one who is granted a generous portion of character, and someone who truly has perseverance can do this. Not anyone can do it. Not easy, because there's a piece of you that's hurt, and justice has not been served. So you feel self-righteous and you're upset with the person. But then you just learn to let it go. Huh? You ever see that game, that silly game that the Canadians love? You know, when they take in the maqasha and they do the thing on the ice, they're like housewives, and the other guy is just walking down holding onto this thing. I always imagine this game as being a perfect analogy for what I'm talking about. The guy who's holding on to, what is it called? That big fat, It's curling. What is the thing called? It's a rock. He's carrying this big fat thing. He's holding it in his hand, and then at a moment, as he's holding it, he just lets it go. He just lets it go. Okay, it's a good game. I'm sorry. It's apparently a very, very good game. He's sliding on the ice and he's holding on to this thing. And when I watch him, I just feel like that moment when they just release. Just let it go. Let it go. Someone hurt you? Yeah, okay. Just try and let it go and see what happens. See if you stop, because you're harming yourself with it. You're holding on to this harm, and this person who talked to you and said those things to you, they don't remember it and they don't care. They don't care. They did it and they forgot about it and they're moved on with their life. They don't think about you at all. But you're holding on to this harm and it's eating away at you. It's eating away. It's ruining your life. It's making you feel bad. It makes you feel less about yourself because you're holding on to it. Just let it go. And just see how it feels. And the next time you see them, idfa billati hiya ahsan. Bring to them the best you got. Your excellence. Show them your excellence and see what happens. And tell me if you regret doing it. Wallahi, you will never regret doing it. Wallahi, you will never regret doing it. Why? Because وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. Twice in the same verse. This will not be granted except to those who are perseverant. This will not be granted except to those who are given a generous portion, a generous share of ethics and morals and character. Allahu Akbar. Imagine being someone who is described like that in the Quran. All you have to do is just let it go. And as they dish out their garbage, you respond with the best you have. And just see how it works. وَإِمَّا يَنزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ. So at the beginning, it talked about what the malaika do for you. لا تخافوا, لا تحزنوا. They give you أبشروا. They give you these prompts of khair inside of you. They take away fear. They take away upset and sadness. They give you the good tidings of something beautiful to come. They support you. They stand by you. They make dua that you make it to a place where you get your desires and you get your wishes. And then the shaitan has a nazgh. A nazgh is basically a poke. A nazgh is basically someone who rips at you, who pulls at you. These are the different meanings for it in the Arabic language. Shaitan comes in and makes a tear inside of you. It makes you think something or imagine something or feel something that you know is wrong. وَإِمَّا يَنزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ. When that happens to you, when you know that this thought is evil, this thought is not good, this feeling is not appropriate, this is not the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would want me to feel, this is not how the Prophet ﷺ would have commanded me to think about people. فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. Then seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Him for protection. Say, Ya Allah, protect me from this. Protect me from this evil thought that I was just given because I don't want to practice it. I do not want to practice it and I don't want to see it through. I want to get rid of it. Ista'idh billah. Innahu huwa as-sami'ul alim. Indeed, He is the one who hears you and He is the one who is all-knowing. He's omniscient. He knows that happened to you. He knows that Shaitan is doing that and he hears you as you seek refuge in Him. Fasta'idh billah. Very simple. You get that bad idea. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. No, I will not see this through. I will not practice this. I will not stand by it. It's not going to happen. I refuse to. And that's how you perform da'wah. And these are the verses of how you want to perform da'wah. This is how you perform da'wah. That's how you do it. You say Rabbuna Allah and then you walk that straight path. You allow the malaika to continue to offer you and nudge you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the best form of spoken da'wah is that which is calling people to Allah through your good deeds and through the umbrella of you just being a good Muslim. And every time someone dishes out shar to you, you dish back khair to them. And that is only offered to those who are perseverant and those who have character. And if shaitan for a moment comes your way and gives you a little bit of a poke and nudges you a little bit towards something wrong and makes you think of something that you shouldn't think of, then seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He does hear you and He does know what's going on. And that's how you do it. And if we all did that, then Islam would spread much quicker than it's spreading today. More importantly, Muslims would stick to their own Islam. Meaning your family members and your friends and the people that you want to be better Muslims would be better Muslims. The most important form of da'wah is that which you perform for Muslims themselves. For the young generation of Muslims who have not committed fully yet, who don't understand the beauty of what we're talking about. You may understand the beauty of it, that's why you're here. But a lot of Muslims aren't here because they don't see that. But they can see it, not through your words. You can take this clip and give it to them. They won't listen to it. They don't like it. They don't want a guy with a beard talking about it. They don't care for that. But what they will see and what they will hear is that character piece of yours. They'll see that one. They will observe your behavior. They'll see your amal salih. They will appreciate idfa billati hiya ahsan. When you bring them the best that you've got, they'll appreciate that one. And they'll pick up on that and they'll actually commit because of it. So don't underestimate the effect that you have in this world and the ability that you have to bring people closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just by being a good person and following the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with that, subhanakallah bihamdika la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullahu khairan, barakallahu fikum. Forgive me, I didn't notice the time. Inshallah, we will be on time, inshallah, yes, tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.